Jack tightened the wrench around the bolt, his fingers steady despite the low gravity of the orbital station. The hum of machinery filled the air, a constant reminder that he was floating hundreds of miles above any solid ground. He liked it here, away from the noise and chaos of Earth. The silence gave him time to think, to focus. That was why he had signed up for this job in the first place, to escape the cluttered streets of Detroit and find something bigger than himself. The docking bay stretched out before him, a cavernous room filled with ships of all shapes and sizes. Some were sleek and polished, clearly owned by wealthy traders or corporate executives. Others looked like they'd been patched together with duct tape and hope, their surfaces scorched from years of travel through asteroid fields and radiation zones. Jack didn't care much for the fancy ones. He preferred the beat-up ships. They had character, stories to tell. And today, one of those stories seemed ready to unfold. A soft sound caught his attention, a rhythmic clicking, almost musical. Turning, he saw her. She wasn't human. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver, catching the dim light of the bay and scattering it into tiny rainbows. Her limbs were long and graceful, moving with an elegance that made Jack feel clumsy just watching her. She wore a suit of some kind, segmented and metallic, but it wasn't bulky. It clung to her form, accentuating her otherworldly beauty. "Jack," she said, her voice smooth and melodic, yet tinged with urgency. "I need your help." Her words startled him. How did she know his name? Before he could ask, she continued, her large, almond-shaped eyes locking onto his. "I need you to help me disrobe." Jack blinked, unsure if he'd heard her correctly. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what she'd just said. Disrobe. Did she mean? No, that couldn't be right. Maybe there was a problem with her suit. That had to be it. Clearing his throat, he nodded slowly. Sure. What exactly do you need help with?" She tilted her head, studying him as though weighing his intentions. Then she gestured toward a nearby maintenance alcove. "Come. I will explain." Curiosity tugged at him, stronger than caution. Following her lead, he grabbed his toolkit and trailed after her. As they walked, or rather, floated, through the station, Jack noticed how people stopped to stare. Aliens weren't uncommon here, but this one was different. There was something regal about her, something that commanded attention without demanding it. Once inside the alcove, she turned to face him. "My name is Lyra," she said. "I am Valeth." She paused, as if waiting for him to recognize the name. When he didn't respond, she added, "We have rituals. Important ones. To survive, we must shed our outer layers periodically. It is not easy. We require assistance." Jack frowned, still confused. "You mean, like taking off your armor?" "In a way," Lyra replied. "But it is more than that. It is sacred, a bond of trust. I chose you because—" She hesitated, searching for the right words. "Because you seem honest. You work hard. You do not seek glory." For a moment, Jack felt a swell of pride. But it was quickly replaced by doubt. Why would someone like her, a being so obviously advanced, need him? What could he possibly offer? Still, he couldn't deny the intrigue pulling at him. This was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. Taking a deep breath, he nodded again. "Okay, I'll help. Just tell me what to do." Lyra smiled faintly, though it was hard to read her expression through her alien features. Reaching up, she touched a panel on her chest. With a soft hiss, part of her suit began to loosen. Jack swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how close they were. This wasn't just a repair job. Whatever happened next, he realized, would change him forever. Jack watched as Lyra carefully removed the first section of her suit. It came away slowly, revealing smooth metallic skin underneath. The surface shimmered faintly, catching even the dim light of the maintenance alcove. Jack felt his heart race, unsure whether it was excitement or nerves driving the sensation. He had never seen anything like this before. No textbook or training manual could have prepared him for this moment. Lyra glanced at him, her almond-shaped eyes calm but expectant. "You must hold this," she said, handing him the piece of her suit. It was surprisingly light, almost weightless in his hands. Its texture was cool and smooth, like polished glass, yet flexible enough to bend easily. Jack stared at it, marveling at how alien technology always seems so far beyond human understanding. "This is important," Lyra continued, breaking the silence. "The process of shedding our outer layers is sacred to my people. It is not something we do lightly, or with just anyone." Her voice softened, carrying a tone of reverence. "It requires trust, deep trust." Jack nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure what that meant for him. Was he supposed to feel honored? Nervous? Both. He decided to focus on the task at hand instead of overthinking it. After all, he was good at fixing things. Maybe this wouldn't be so different. As Lyra began removing another segment of her suit, she spoke again, her words flowing like a story shared around a campfire. "On my home planet, there are forests made of crystal trees. They glow softly at night, lighting up the sky with colors you cannot imagine. And the oceans, they are alive, filled with creatures that sing songs only we can hear." Jack listened intently, captivated by her descriptions. He tried to picture the world she was painting, but it was hard to imagine something so unlike Earth. Still, her words painted vivid images in his mind. Glowing forests stretching endlessly, oceans pulsing with life, skies painted in hues no human eye had ever seen. For a brief moment, he forgot where he was and let himself get lost in her stories. "And your people?" Lyra asked suddenly, snapping him back to reality. "What is your world like?" Caught off guard, Jack hesitated. How could he explain Earth to someone who came from such a wondrous place? Finally, he shrugged and began talking about his childhood in Detroit. The bustling streets, the towering buildings, the way snow blanketed everything during winter. He told her about his love for tinkering with machines, how he'd spend hours in his garage taking apart old radios and putting them back together again. Lyra listened quietly, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she smiled faintly. "Your world sounds busy, chaotic, but also full of life. I think I would like to see it someday." Jack chuckled nervously. "Well, don't expect glowing forests or singing oceans. It's just us, humans trying to figure things out." Her smile widened slightly, and for the first time, Jack noticed how expressive her face could be despite its alien features. She reached for another part of her suit, pausing to look at him. "Help me with this one," she instructed, gesturing toward a panel near her shoulder. Jack stepped closer, his fingers brushing against the cool metal of her suit as he worked. He felt a strange warmth radiating from her skin beneath it, subtle but undeniable. "Why me?" he blurted out, unable to hold back the question any longer. "I mean, why did you choose me to help with something so important?" Lyra paused, considering his question. "Because you are honest," she said finally. "You carry no hidden agendas, no greed. That is rare among beings, even among my own kind. And because," she trailed off, her gaze dropping briefly before meeting his again, "because I believe you will understand." "Understand what?" Jack wanted to ask, but before he could, Lyra turned her attention back to the task. Together, they continued removing pieces of her suit, each segment revealing more of her shimmering form. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this ritual was about more than just shedding an outer layer. It felt like peeling back barriers, creating a connection deeper than words could describe. By the time they finished, Jack realized he didn't just feel like a helper anymore. He felt like a participant, someone trusted with something profound. Whatever lay ahead, he knew this moment would stay with him forever. As the last piece of her suit came away, Jack found himself staring at Lyra in awe. Without the segmented armor, she seemed even more otherworldly. Her skin shimmered like liquid metal, but now he could see faint patterns shifting across its surface, swirling designs that glowed softly, almost like they were alive. It was mesmerizing, and for a moment, Jack forgot to breathe. Lyra noticed his reaction and smiled faintly. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she said, her voice gentle. "This is who we truly are beneath our outer layers. Vulnerable, yet strong." Jack nodded slowly, still trying to process everything. "I've never seen anything like it," he admitted. "You're incredible." Her smile widened slightly, though there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Thank you. But beauty comes with challenges. My people have enemies, Jack. Powerful ones who seek to exploit us for what we are." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and ominous. Jack frowned, unsure how to respond. "Enemies? What do you mean?" Lyra hesitated, as if debating how much to share. Finally, she sighed and gestured for him to sit beside her on a nearby bench. "There is something I must tell you," she began. "Something important. The reason I chose you goes beyond trust. You see, my people possess knowledge, ancient technology that others covet. Technology capable of controlling gravity itself." Jack's eyes widened. Gravity control. That sounded like science fiction, the kind of thing dreamed up in movies or books. But looking at Lyra, he knew she wasn't joking. "And these enemies, they want this technology." She nodded gravely. "Yes, a rogue faction within the Interstellar Trade Guild has been hunting my kind. They believe we hold secrets that will give them power over entire star systems. Many of my people have already been captured, or worse." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't just about helping Lyra shed her suit anymore. She was in danger, and by extension, so was he. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked quietly. "Because I need your help," she replied without hesitation. "Not just with the ritual, but with something far greater. If they find me here, everyone on this station could be at risk. I need to hide evidence of my presence before they arrive." Jack leaned back, running a hand through his hair. This was too much to take in. One moment, he was just an engineer fixing machines. The next, he was being asked to protect an alien from ruthless hunters. It all felt surreal, like stepping into some grand adventure he hadn't signed up for. But deep down, he knew what his answer would be. He couldn't turn his back on her, not after everything she'd shared. "Okay," he said finally. "Tell me what I need to do." Lyra's expression softened with relief. "First, we must secure the data crystals I brought with me. They contain information about my people's technology. If the hunters get their hands on them, it could mean disaster." Jack nodded, his mind racing. "Where are they now?" "In my quarters," she admitted. "But retrieving them won't be easy. Security patrols are increasing, and I fear someone may already suspect my presence." "Then we'll have to be careful," Jack said firmly. He stood up, feeling the surge of determination. For the first time in years, he felt truly alive, as if every decision mattered. Helping Lyra wasn't just about doing the right thing. It was about proving to himself that he could make a difference. Together, they left the alcove and headed toward the residential section of the station. Along the way, Jack couldn't help but notice how Lyra moved, with quiet confidence, despite the weight of her circumstances. There was a strength in her that went beyond her physical form, something deep and unshakable. When they reached her quarters, Lyra opened the door with a wave of her hand. Inside, the room was simple but functional, with a few personal items scattered around. On a small desk sat a silver case. The data crystals. Jack picked it up cautiously, feeling its cool surface against his palm. "We need to move quickly," Lyra urged, glancing nervously at the door. "Every second counts." Jack nodded, gripping the case tightly. As they prepared to leave, he realized something. Whatever happened next, he was ready. This wasn't just about protecting Lyra anymore. It was about standing up for something bigger than himself. And for the first time in his life, Jack felt like he belonged. As the last piece of her suit came away, Jack found himself staring at Lyra in awe. Without the segmented armor, she seemed even more otherworldly. Her skin shimmered like liquid metal, but now he could see faint patterns shifting across its surface, swirling designs that glowed softly, almost like they were alive. It was mesmerizing, and for a moment, Jack forgot to breathe. Lyra noticed his reaction and smiled faintly. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she said, her voice gentle. "This is who we truly are beneath our outer layers. Vulnerable, yet strong." Jack nodded slowly, still trying to process everything. "I've never seen anything like it," he admitted. "You're incredible." Her smile widened slightly, though there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Thank you. But beauty comes with challenges. My people have enemies, Jack. Powerful ones who seek to exploit us for what we are." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and ominous. Jack frowned, unsure how to respond. "Enemies? What do you mean?" Lyra hesitated, as if debating how much to share. Finally, she sighed and gestured for him to sit beside her on a nearby bench. "There is something I must tell you," she began. "Something important. The reason I chose you goes beyond trust. You see, my people possess knowledge, ancient technology that others covet. Technology capable of controlling gravity itself." Jack's eyes widened. Gravity control. That sounded like science fiction, the kind of thing dreamed up in movies or books. But looking at Lyra, he knew she wasn't joking. "And these enemies, they want this technology." She nodded gravely. "Yes, a rogue faction within the Interstellar Trade Guild has been hunting my kind. They believe we hold secrets that will give them power over entire star systems. Many of my people have already been captured, or worse." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't just about helping Lyra shed her suit anymore. She was in danger, and by extension, so was he. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked quietly. "Because I need your help," she replied without hesitation. "Not just with the ritual, but with something far greater. If they find me here, everyone on this station could be at risk. I need to hide evidence of my presence before they arrive." Jack leaned back, running a hand through his hair. This was too much to take in. One moment, he was just an engineer fixing machines. The next, he was being asked to protect an alien from ruthless hunters. It all felt surreal, like stepping into some grand adventure he hadn't signed up for. But deep down, he knew what his answer would be. He couldn't turn his back on her, not after everything she'd shared. "Okay," he said finally. "Tell me what I need to do." Lyra's expression softened with relief. "First, we must secure the data crystals I brought with me. They contain information about my people's technology. If the hunters get their hands on them, it could mean disaster." Jack nodded, his mind racing. "Where are they now?" "In my quarters," she admitted. "But retrieving them won't be easy. Security patrols are increasing, and I fear someone may already suspect my presence." "Then we'll have to be careful," Jack said firmly. He stood up, feeling the surge of determination. For the first time in years, he felt truly alive, as if every decision mattered. Helping Lyra wasn't just about doing the right thing. It was about proving to himself that he could make a difference. Together, they left the alcove and headed toward the residential section of the station. Along the way, Jack couldn't help but notice how Lyra moved, with quiet confidence, despite the weight of her circumstances. There was a strength in her that went beyond her physical form, something deep and unshakable. When they reached her quarters, Lyra opened the door with a wave of her hand. Inside, the room was simple but functional, with a few personal items scattered around. On a small desk sat a silver case. The data crystals. Jack picked it up cautiously, feeling its cool surface against his palm. "We need to move quickly," Lyra urged, glancing nervously at the door. "Every second counts." Jack nodded, gripping the case tightly. As they prepared to leave, he realized something. Whatever happened next, he was ready. This wasn't just about protecting Lyra anymore. It was about standing up for something bigger than himself. And for the first time in his life, Jack felt like he belonged. The alarms blared loudly, their sharp tones filling the station as crew members scrambled to respond to the chaos Jack had created. Smoke curled from the damaged panel near the docking bay, drawing attention like moths to a flame. Engineers and technicians rushed past him, shouting orders and carrying tools. Jack lingered for a moment, watching the scene unfold, before slipping away unnoticed. His heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. The diversion was working. Now it was up to Lyra to hold her ground. Back in Storage Bay 7, Lyra worked quickly. She opened the silver case and removed the data crystals, studying them briefly under the dim light. Each crystal pulsed faintly with an inner glow, holding secrets that could change the balance of power across the galaxy. She couldn't let them fall into the wrong hands. Carefully, she tucked the crystals into a hidden compartment, inside one of the crates stacked against the wall. It wasn't perfect, but it would have to do. As she finished, the sound of footsteps echoed outside the door. Lyra froze, her glowing patterns dimming slightly as she focused on the noise. Someone was coming, and they weren't alone. The metallic scrape of boots against the floor grew louder, accompanied by low voices murmuring in hushed tones. "They said she'd be here," one voice hissed. "Check every room." Lyra's mind raced. She didn't recognize the voices, but their intent was clear. They were hunting her. Moving silently, she grabbed a piece of equipment from a nearby shelf and positioned herself behind the door, ready to act if necessary. Her skin shimmered faintly, blending with the shadows. She wasn't defenseless. Not entirely. But fighting wasn't her first choice. Not yet. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing two figures clad in dark uniforms. Their faces were obscured by helmets, but the insignia on their chests marked them as mercenaries. One stepped forward, scanning the room with a handheld device that emitted a soft blue light. The other stayed near the doorway, gripping a weapon tightly. "Nothing," the first mercenary muttered, frustration creeping into his voice. "This is a waste of time." A second man shrugged. "Orders are orders. Keep looking." Lyra waited until the first man turned his back, then moved. With surprising speed, she swung the piece of equipment, striking the man hard enough to knock him off balance. He stumbled, dropping the scanner, and cursed loudly. Before the second mercenary could react, Lyra darted forward, her movements fluid and precise. She grabbed the fallen scanner and hurled it at him, hitting him squarely in the chest. The impact startled him, giving her just enough time to slip past them and out the door. She didn't stop running until she reached the maintenance alcove where she'd first met Jack. Breathing heavily, she leaned against the wall, her patterns flickering erratically. She needed help, and fast. Pulling out a small communicator, she sent a quick signal to Jack. "They're here," she whispered urgently. "We need to leave. Now." Moments later, Jack arrived, his face pale but determined. "What happened?" he asked, glancing around nervously. "They found me," Lyra replied, her voice tight with tension. "We can't stay. We need to get off this station." Jack nodded, already thinking ahead. "There's a cargo ship leaving soon. Mia, the pilot I told you about, owes me a favor. If anyone can get us out of here, it's her." Lyra hesitated, unsure whether trusting another human was wise. But time was running out. "Then we go," she said finally. "Lead the way." Together, they made their way to the docking bay, sticking to shadowy corners and avoiding patrols. When they reached the designated ship, a battered freighter with scorch marks along its hull, Mia was waiting for them. She was shorter than Jack, with short brown hair and a no-nonsense expression. Her arms were crossed as she leaned against the ship's ramp. "Took you long enough," she said dryly, eyeing Lyra with curiosity. "Who's your friend?" "No time to explain," Jack said quickly. "Can you get us out of here or not?" Mia smirked. "Relax. I've got you covered. Get on board." As they climbed aboard, the sound of distant shouts echoed through the station. The hunters were closing in. Jack glanced back one last time, feeling a pang of guilt for leaving the station, and everyone on it, behind. But there was no turning back now. This was survival. Once inside, Mia wasted no time. The engines roared to life, and the ship detached from the dock, soaring into the vastness of space. Jack sat down beside Lyra, his body tense, but his mind racing. For better or worse, their journey had only just begun. The cargo ship jolted as it cleared the station's docking bay, its engines straining against the pull of gravity. Inside, the cabin was cramped and cluttered, with wires dangling from the ceiling and crates stacked haphazardly along the walls. Jack sat on a metal bench, gripping the edge tightly as Mia maneuvered the ship through the chaos outside. Lyra stood nearby, her glowing patterns dimmed, but still faintly visible in the low light. Her eyes were fixed on the viewport, watching as the station grew smaller and smaller in the distance. "Hold on tight," Mia called out from the cockpit, her voice sharp and focused. "We've got company." Jack turned to look out the window just in time to see two sleek ships emerging from the shadows of the station. Their hulls gleamed menacingly, and their movements were fast, too fast for ordinary patrol vessels. These were the hunters. They didn't waste any time, either. Within seconds, bright red beams shot past the freighter, narrowly missing its rear thrusters. "They're firing," Jack shouted, his stomach lurching as the ship rocked violently. He grabbed onto a nearby crate to steady himself, his knuckles white with tension. "I noticed," Maya snapped back, her hands flying over the controls. "Strap in if you don't want to end up floating in space." Lyra moved closer to Jack, her expression calm despite the danger. "We need to disable their weapons," she said firmly. "If we can disrupt their systems, even for a moment, it might give us enough time to escape. How do you propose we do that?" Jack asked, his voice rising over the sound of another blast shaking the ship. "We're not exactly equipped for a space battle." Lyra tilted her head, her shimmering skin catching the faint glow of the instrument panels. "I can manipulate electromagnetic fields," she explained. "It's part of who I am. But I'll need access to your ship's external systems to amplify my abilities." Mia glanced back at them, her brow furrowed. "You mean you want to use my ship as a weapon?" "In a way," Lyra replied. "It's risky, but it's our best chance." Mia hesitated, then nodded sharply. "Fine. Do what you have to do. Just don't blow us all up." With that, Lyra crouched down near one of the exposed panels on the floor, her fingers moving deftly over the wires. Jack watched in awe as sparks began to fly, illuminating her face with flashes of light. Whatever she was doing, it seemed to be working. The freighter's systems surged with energy, causing the entire ship to hum like a live wire. Outside, the hunters continued their relentless pursuit, firing volley after volley at the fleeing vessel. One shot struck the side of the ship, sending debris scattering into space. Jack flinched, his heart pounding harder than ever. He wanted to help, but he didn't know how. All he could do was trust Lyra, and hope she knew what she was doing. Suddenly, the ship shuddered again. But this time, it wasn't from an attack. A burst of energy erupted outward, enveloping the hunters' ships in a blinding flash of light. For a moment, everything went silent. Then, one of the enemy ships veered off course, its engines sputtering uncontrollably. The other slowed to a crawl, clearly struggling to regain control. "It worked," Lyra said, her voice tinged with relief. She stood up, brushing her hands together. "Their systems are overloaded. We have a small window to escape." Mia wasted no time. With a triumphant grin, she pushed the throttle forward, sending the freighter hurtling into open space. Behind them, the hunters disappeared into the void, their ships crippled and powerless. For a few moments, no one spoke. The only sounds were the soft hum of the engines and the occasional beep of the ship's instruments. Jack let out a shaky breath, sinking back onto the bench. His body felt heavy, weighed down by adrenaline and exhaustion. "You okay?" he asked Lyra softly, noticing how her patterns had returned to their usual gentle glow. She nodded, though there was a weariness in her eyes. "I will be. Thank you for trusting me." Jack managed a weak smile. Trust goes both ways, remember. Mia leaned back in her seat, letting out a low whistle. Well, that was exciting. Anyone care to explain what the hell just happened? Jack exchanged a glance with Lyra. "Long story," he said simply. Mia raised an eyebrow, but didn't press further. Instead, she turned her attention back to the controls, guiding the ship deeper into the stars. As the station faded completely from view, Jack felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. They had escaped, for now. But he knew the hunters wouldn't give up so easily. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The freighter sailed through the vast emptiness of space, its battered hull creaking faintly as it pushed onward. Inside, the mood was tense, but quieter now that the immediate danger had passed. Mia sat in the pilot's seat, her fingers tapping rhythmically on the controls as she monitored their course. Jack leaned against a wall near the viewport, staring out at the endless sea of stars. Lyra stood beside him, her shimmering skin casting soft reflections across the cabin. "We're clear for now," Mia announced after a long silence. "But we can't relax just yet. Those hunters won't stay down forever." Jack nodded, his thoughts swirling. He knew she was right. They might have bought themselves some time, but it wouldn't last long. The hunters were persistent and dangerous. Still, he couldn't help feeling a flicker of hope. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was part of something bigger than himself. Something meaningful. Lyra turned to look at him, her almond-shaped eyes filled with quiet determination. "We need to find a safe place to regroup," she said. "Somewhere they won't think to look." "Easier said than done," Mia muttered, glancing back at them. "Safe places are hard to come by these days, especially if you're running from people with deep pockets." Jack frowned, thinking hard. What about neutral territory? Somewhere outside their reach? Mia shook her head. Neutral zones aren't as safe as they used to be. Too many spies, too much corruption. If we want to stay hidden, we'll have to get creative. Lyra tilted her head thoughtfully. "There is one option," she said slowly. "An abandoned outpost near the edge of this sector. It's old and forgotten. Most ships avoid it because of radiation leaks. But my people once used it as a refuge. It might still be usable." Mia raised an eyebrow. "Radiation leaks sound fun. What makes you think it's safe?" "It isn't safe," Lyra admitted. "But it's isolated. And if we can repair the shielding, it could provide temporary shelter." Jack looked between the two women, weighing their options. None of them were ideal, but they didn't have much choice. "Let's do it," he said finally. "Better than sitting here waiting for them to catch up." Mia sighed but didn't argue. She adjusted the ship's trajectory, setting a course for the coordinates Lyra provided. As the ship hummed along, Jack found himself wondering what awaited them at the outpost. Would it really offer protection, or would it become another trap? Hours passed in uneasy silence. The only sounds were the occasional beeps from the control panel and the faint hum of the engines. Jack tried to distract himself by tinkering with a loose wire dangling from the ceiling, but his mind kept drifting back to Lyra. There was so much he didn't know about her people, their technology, and the secrets they carried. Yet despite all the unknowns, he trusted her completely. That realization surprised him. Trust wasn't something he gave easily, not after years of disappointment and betrayal. But Lyra, she was different. Finally, the outpost came into view, a crumbling structure floating in the darkness, its surface scarred by decades of neglect. Panels hung loose, and parts of the outer shell were missing entirely, exposing the skeletal framework beneath. It looked like a ghost ship, haunted by memories of a distant past. "This is it?" Maya asked skeptically, bringing the freighter to a stop nearby. "Looks like it's seen better days." "It has," Lyra replied. "But it's our best chance." As they prepared to board, Jack felt a chill run down his spine. The outpost loomed before them, silent and foreboding. Whatever secrets it held, they were about to uncover them, together. The airlock hissed open, and the trio stepped cautiously into the abandoned outpost. The interior was dark, lit only by the faint glow of emergency lights that flickered erratically along the walls. Dust coated every surface, and the metallic scent of decay filled the air. Jack's boots crunched softly against the debris littering the floor, bits of broken panels, scraps of wiring, and fragments of forgotten equipment. "This place is creepy," Mia muttered, shining a flashlight around the room. Her voice echoed slightly, bouncing off the cracked walls. "Feels like something out of a horror movie." Jack couldn't disagree. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional groan of the station's aging structure. He glanced at Lyra, who moved with quiet confidence despite the eerie atmosphere. Her glowing patterns cast soft, shifting light across the dim corridor, revealing shadows that seemed to dance unnaturally in the corners of his vision. "We need to find the main control room," Lyra said, her voice steady. "If we can restore power and activate the radiation shielding, this place will be safe enough for now." Mia sighed, adjusting the strap of her toolkit. "Great. More repairs. Just what I wanted to do today." Jack managed a small smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Let's split up," he suggested. "We'll cover more ground that way. Lyra, you lead us to the control room. Maya and I will check for anything useful. Tools, supplies, whatever we can scavenge." Lyra nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Be careful. This station has been abandoned for decades. Some areas may be unstable." With that warning hanging in the air, they separated. Jack followed Mia down one corridor, while Lyra took another route, her movements graceful and deliberate. As they explored, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. Every creak of the metal beneath their feet made him tense, and every shadow seemed to shift just out of the corner of his eye. "Relax," Maya said, noticing his unease. "It's probably just your imagination messing with you. Old stations like this always feel haunted." "I hope you're right," Jack replied, though he wasn't convinced. His instincts told him something was off, but whether it was paranoia or genuine danger, he couldn't tell. After 20 minutes of searching, they stumbled upon a storage room filled with rusted tools and half-empty crates. Most of the items were useless, but Jack managed to salvage a few functional gadgets and some spare wiring. It wasn't much, but it would help if they needed to make quick repairs later. Meanwhile, Lyra had reached the control room. She stood before a console covered in dust and grime, her fingers hovering over the controls as she examined the ancient system. A faint hum began to resonate through the station as she worked, bringing the dormant systems back online. Lights flickered on one by one, casting a pale glow over the previously shadowy corridors. By the time Jack and Mia returned, the control room was partially powered. Lyra looked up as they entered, her expression tinged with both relief and exhaustion. "I've stabilized the core," she explained, "but the radiation shielding needs more work. Without it, prolonged exposure could be dangerous." Mia set down her bag and rolled up her sleeves. "All right, let's get to it. What do you need me to do?" As they worked together, Jack found himself marveling at how seamlessly they'd functioned as a team. Despite their differences and the chaos surrounding them, they complemented each other perfectly. Lyra's knowledge of advanced systems, paired with Mia's practical engineering skills, created a synergy that even Jack, with his limited expertise, could contribute to. Hours passed in focused silence, punctuated only by the occasional comment or question. Finally, the radiation shielding came online with a low hum, enveloping the station in a protective barrier. The tension in the room eased slightly, though none of them allowed themselves to fully relax. "We did it," Jack said quietly, leaning against a wall. His body ached from hours of physical labor, but there was a sense of accomplishment in his voice. "For now," Lyra added, her tone cautious. "This is only temporary. We still have to figure out our next move." Mia stretched her arms above her head, letting out a long breath. Well, at least we're alive. That's something. Jack nodded, glancing at Lyra. Despite everything, the danger, the uncertainty, he felt a spark of hope. They had survived this far, and somehow, he knew they would keep going. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Days turned into weeks aboard the abandoned outpost, and a fragile sense of routine began to take hold. The trio worked tirelessly to make the station habitable, patching leaks, reinforcing weak sections of the hull, and scavenging what little supplies they could find. Jack spent most of his time tinkering with the old systems, using scraps from broken equipment to keep things running. Mia handled structural repairs, her hand steady as she welded cracks and secured loose panels. Lyra focused on maintaining the radiation shielding, ensuring it held strong against the invisible threat outside. Despite the constant work, there were moments of quiet reflection. Jack often found himself standing at one of the viewports, staring out at the endless expanse of space. It was strange how peaceful it felt, even with danger lurking just beyond their fragile sanctuary. He thought about Earth, about the crowded streets of Detroit, the noise, the chaos, and realized how far he'd come. This life, though uncertain, felt more real than anything he'd known before. Lyra joined him one evening, her glowing patterns casting soft light across the dim room. "Do you miss it?" she asked, her voice gentle. "Your home?" Jack hesitated, considering the question. "Not really," he admitted after a moment. "I mean, I miss parts of it. The people, some memories, but not the way things were. Life there, it didn't feel like I was making a difference. Here, with you and Mia, I feel like I'm part of something bigger." Lyra smiled faintly, her expression thoughtful. "You are. You've already done so much. For me, for us. I couldn't have made it this far without you." Her words warmed him in a way he hadn't expected. "Same goes for you," he said softly. "If it weren't for you, I'd still be fixing coolant systems back on that station. You gave me a purpose." They stood in silence for a while, watching the stars drift lazily past the window. For all its dangers, space had a kind of beauty that Jack couldn't deny. It was vast and untamed, full of possibilities he never could have imagined. Later that night, Mia called them to the makeshift galley, a small room they'd converted into a dining area. She had managed to cobble together a meal using ration packs and a few canned goods salvaged from the outpost's storage. It wasn't fancy, but it was enough. "All right, team," Maya said, leaning back in her chair. "We've got food, we got shelter, and we're still breathing. Not bad for a bunch of misfits, huh?" Jack chuckled, taking a bite of the bland stew. "Could be worse." Mia smirked. "Yeah, we could be dead. Silver linings, right?" Lyra nodded, though her expression remained serious. "This is only temporary," she reminded them. "We need to decide our next move. The hunters won't stop searching forever." The mood shifted slightly, the weight of reality settling over them. They all knew she was right. The outpost was safe for now, but it wouldn't protect them indefinitely. Sooner or later, they would have to leave. And when they did, they would need a plan. "What about neutral territory?" Jack suggested. "Somewhere remote, where no one will look for us." "It's risky," Mia countered. "Neutral zones attract all kinds of trouble. We'd stick out like a sore thumb." Lyra tilted her head, thinking. "There may be another option. My people have allies scattered throughout the galaxy. Hidden colonies, safe havens. If we can reach one of them, we might find refuge." Jack looked at her, surprised. "You never mentioned allies before." "I didn't want to involve them," she admitted. "But now, I think we have no choice." Mia raised an eyebrow. "And you trust these allies?" "They've helped my people before," Lyra replied. "They'll help us again, if we can get to them." The conversation lingered in the air as they finished their meal. None of them spoke much after that, each lost in their own thoughts. The road ahead was uncertain, But for the first time in weeks, Jack felt a flicker of hope. They weren't just surviving. They were planning. And as long as they had each other, he believed they could face whatever came next. When they finally retired for the night, Jack lay awake for a while, staring at the ceiling. The hum of the station's systems filled the silence, a reminder of how far they'd come and how far they still had to go. But for now, they were safe. For now, that was enough. Months passed, and the trio left the abandoned outpost behind, venturing deeper into the unknown reaches of space. With Lyra's guidance, they charted a course toward one of her people's hidden colonies, a distant world said to be untouched by the greed and violence that plagued much of the galaxy. Jack, Mia, and Lyra had grown closer during their journey, their bond forged through shared struggles and quiet moments of trust. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were a team. The ship, though still battered and patched together, carried them steadily across star systems. Jack spent his days maintaining its systems, ensuring it remained functional despite its age. He often found himself marveling at how far they'd come, not just in distance, but in spirit. Life aboard the freighter was simple, even monotonous at times, but it gave him time to think. He thought about Earth, about the choices that led him here, and about the future he wanted to build with these two extraordinary women. Lyra sat on the observation deck one evening, gazing out at the swirling colors of a nearby nebula. Its hues shifted from deep gold to soft violet, painting the walls of the cabin with an ethereal glow. Jack joined her, leaning against the railing as he followed her gaze. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said softly. "It's more than beautiful," Lyra replied, her voice tinged with wonder. "It's alive. The universe is always changing, always growing. It reminds me why we fight, to protect this." Jack nodded, feeling a swell of gratitude. This journey wasn't just about survival. It was about discovery. Every new star, every uncharted planet, felt like a step toward something greater. For the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to feel truly free. Mia entered the room, holding a steaming cup of synthetic coffee. She handed one to Jack before joining them at the viewport. "Still no sign of trouble," she said, sipping her drink. "Guess we're doing something right for once." "Don't jinx it," Jack teased, earning a smirk from Mia. They stood there together, watching the nebula drift past, each lost in their own thoughts. Despite the challenges ahead, there was a sense of calm among them, a quiet confidence that they could face whatever came next. They had already overcome so much: mercenaries, radiation leaks, and countless other dangers. If they could survive all of that, they could survive anything. Eventually, the colony came into view, a small settlement nestled within the crystalline forests Lyra had described months earlier. Its structures shimmered like glass, blending seamlessly with the glowing trees around them. Lights flickered softly in the distance, signaling life and safety. As the ship descended, Jack felt a mix of excitement and relief. This wasn't the end of their journey, but it was a new beginning. When they landed, they were greeted warmly by the colonists, who welcomed Lyra like a long-lost friend. She introduced Jack and Mia, explaining their role in protecting her and the secrets of her people. The colonists listened intently, nodding with respect. For the first time in what felt like forever, Jack felt a sense of belonging. Days turned into weeks as they settled into the rhythm of life on the colony. Jack learned more about the Valith, their culture, and their connection to the universe. Mia threw herself into helping repair and upgrade the colony's infrastructure, while Lyra took on the role of ambassador, bridging the gap between her people and the newcomers. One night, as Jack stood on the edge of the forest, staring up at the alien sky, Lyra approached him. "Do you regret coming here?" she asked quietly. He shook his head without hesitation. "Not for a second. This place, it feels like home." Lyra smiled, her patterns glowing softly in the darkness. "Good. Because this is only the start, Jack. There's so much more to see, so much more to learn." He returned her smile, feeling a spark of excitement ignite within him. Whatever lay ahead, he knew they would face it together. And for now, that was enough.